And yeah, I think hello. How's it going? Didn't realize that I need that. Do I need that? No, I didn't need it. Okay, well, then I guess I can have some friends. Hey, how about all of you weirdos come in, hey weirdos, come and, hop in the Zoom room and say hi. I'm gonna read, and you don't have to, but just say hi. Ooh, look at that. Wow. Oh my. Okay, this might actually work. Mm-hmm. So we'll just have to see how it goes. I can go live. Sure. Let's just do true crime. Well, let's just do true crime. True crime story time. Okay. Last podcast on the left. Let's do reading. Last podcast on the left. Chapter 1. Ted Bundy. Okay. And then I'm just going to put just chatting. And we'll see how that goes. Okay. Okay. And okay. I think maybe the stream has started. I don't know. I need my friends and the backup Shelley team to let me know how it's going. Tonight, I planned on doing a book study. Not necessarily a regular book study in the terms that you might think, but I I don't know what you can and can't see. That's the problem. So here, we'll just figure this out right now. I'll just go on Facebook and see if it's up. I follow a podcast called Last Podcast on the Left. All things true crime, horror stories, bizarre stories, cryptid stories. I mean, it's just weird, and it's presented by 3 guys who are hilarious. They're just normal Joe Schmoes that love metal and horror, and they really, I mean, I think I was introduced to the podcast, and the first thing I listened to was the Jonestown Massacre, and I'm older than you think, so I knew a little bit about it, but I also knew the term like, yeah, don't drink the Kool-Aid, right? Like, ha ha ha, what a funny joke. Where did that come from? Because I grew up as a kid loving Kool-Aid. I freaking love Kool-Aid, okay? So, I don't know if you can hear this. This is so sad, but maybe you can see me later. Okay, this is Ted Bundy, Chapter 1. We've got this great picture of him. And if you can, in the chat, let me know. Let me know what's going down. Let me know if you can see and hear and smell. Well, not smell, but you smell me. Okay, so anyways, this book is great. Only because, I don't know if I can. Only because it's got stories of murder and mayhem from history's most notorious serial killers. Boom. Let's see. Let me tinker around with my, yeah, and, let's see. I don't know how I can, you know what? I'm not gonna mess with it. I'd really not mess with it, because now I can't remember what the hell is going on. I think I was sharing, oh, I know what I was doing. I was sharing this book, but I was doing it. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to ask Streamlabs to just hang tight. Hang tight, everybody. Oh, that's so cute. It's totally not in sync. So I'll figure it out. Will I figure it out? Oh, good. Okay. I want anyone that's watching to let me know if you can hear me, because if not, that's not going to be fun. That's not going to be fun at all. And no one's watching right now, so I should totally stop. Okay, how about I stop it? Okay, and my window capture is going to be not that, but that. Is it going to be that? Is it going to be that? Let's see. No. Not going to be that. Let's change it up. Let's figure it out. Figure it out, Shelly. How about that? Can you do that? Okay. And let me do that. And let me do that. And then... Oh, let's see. Oh, it's not. I want it to capture. No. I want it to capture. Try that. Automatic. Oh, did I just figure it out? I don't know. We'll figure it out. I wonder how Bailey Sarian figured out all of her crap. Did she ask people? Did people say, yeah, I'm here to help you, and then not really? So she has to do it all by herself? Is it like that? Is it like that? I don't know. What does a girl gotta do to get cracking? With the story time, right? It's just story time. But I love it so much I want to share it with everyone. Okay? I'm doing it! Okay, I know you don't care. I know no one's watching. And no one even told me if they can hear or see or smell or taste. Dinner time. Okay, so I think I figured that out. This is the book. This is the book that I want to share with everyone. I don't read a lot. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And I listen to their podcast almost every day. 5 times a week. Right? And they're hilarious. They're funny. So we're going to get... I mean, look at the illustrations, right? We've got... what is that? The BTK killer. I want to say that's Richard Chase with his stupid pentagram. That is the Son of Sam. That is John Wayne Gacy. Jeffrey Dahmer. Ted Bundy. Tonight. I mean, I'm not a big fan of him. I mean, who should be? He's a sicko. But his story is... it's all right. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to know, I'll tell you. We've got Ted Bundy, Richard Chase, Ed Gein, John Wayne Gacy, Richard Ramirez, David Berkowitz, BTK, Andre Chikatilo, and Jeffrey Dahmer. Oh. Whoever is messaging me right now, come, join, watch, listen. I'm not gonna get too crazy with it, okay? It's 7:20, right? Shelly's got to eat dinner sometime. But if you can, let me know if you can hear me in the chat. That would be cool. You know? That would be cool. And then this is what I get to do. And then we'll just see how it goes. Yeah. Did it stop? Yes, it stopped. Okay, so you know what we're gonna do now? No, we're still gonna read. It's all good. I don't think I can present to you the book as super cool as I wanted to. But it's not all about looking at me. I mean, I did put on makeup today, which is great, right? She put on makeup, she showered, she did normal things like a grown-up should. But as long as you can hear me, I think that's all that matters. So please, let me know. And is that better? Yeah, okay. I bet that's fine. I bet you guys are gonna just like it the way it is. It's just gonna be fine the way it is, okay? So check it out, Ted Bundy. When you see this picture, this is Marcus Parks. I would call him the nerd, maybe the nerd of the group, He does the research. When it comes to serial killing, one hesitates to use qualifiers like best or the greatest, because for the most part, using descriptors of that sort is tasteless and disrespectful to the victims, okay? But if one were to objectively quantify pure ability, evasion skills, and the capacity to inspire fear in the hearts of the public, Ted Bundy would come out on top. Really? This man was so terrifying, so reprehensible, so iconic that he seemed mythical. However, when you pull back the curtain, Bundy, like all the degenerates you're going to get to know over the course of this book, was just a man. Fortunately, given that very few people ever actually witness a serial killer at work and live to tell the tale, we generally have to trust the most untrustworthy person in the room to create the narrative, the actual effing killer. Sorry, I don't want to lose my space. The mythology that surrounds Ted Bundy is one that helped to create from his supposed habit of gussying up the decapitated heads of his victims with makeup to the sexual acts he allegedly performed on said heads. Ew. While there is no doubt about the heinousness of his crimes, there remains skepticism as to the veracity of some of his claims. Now, I'm just going to let you know that, let's see, can I zoom in here for a second? Zoom out, zoom in. I guess that's about it. But this guy right here, Ben Kissel, super cutie, super lovable, would do anything for the guy, okay? And he has to add something. I mean, look at this little comic book. As a Knicks fan, I witness a serial killing every day. Fucking sports joke? Get out of here. And then this is supposed to be Henry Zebrowski. They are paid millions of dollars to lose. I can relate. I'm paid literally hundreds of dollars to suck on television. Okay, first of all, Henry Zebrowski, you don't suck. I love the guy. But anyways, I'll continue on. Okay, so even before he got a chance to humble brag about his crimes, Bundy was already well versed in deception. Throughout his life, he fooled those around him by combining his striking good looks with a carefully crafted aw shucks facade that was rooted in sociopath confidence. Outwardly, Bundy personified the old cliche. Women wanted him and men wanted to be him. Ew. You could... Have you seen a picture of Ted Bundy? Yucko. He was fueled by narcissism and rage. Oh, did somebody have a bad upbringing? Okay. Where am I? Am I doing this the right way? Am I going... Okay, yeah. This is Henry Zebrowski. Ted Bundy follows a long line of serial killers who live double lives. During the day, they were normal, meaning they could hold a job and have relationships. but in their minds, they would turn into a monster. We learned from H.H. Holmes that for serial killers, getting away with the portrayal of the normal part of their lives is often just as thrilling as the murders themselves. They love getting one over on someone else because it tickles their sense of superiority. Yes. I nailed it. Though deep down they know they're in actuality, very small and weak. I am busy right now. If you can see people, that's okay though. I'll still say hi. Even though Bundy's victim count likely runs well past a dozen, many were too badly decomposed when they were found for a full forensic reckoning. The true crime world, however, just couldn't help itself in filling in the blanks when building Bundy's persona and mythology. Bundy has the dubious distinction of being top of the serial killer trash pile, so he needed no help in giving his story an edge of evil. But in the pursuit of profit, crime writers and TV producers turned an admittedly deadly animal into a beast of a revelation. Henry Zebrowski also says, it's a common thread in true crime entertainment. The scarier the monster portrayed, the easier it is to sell books. Thank you for your purchase. Cha-ching. And get people to watch television shows. Fear makes people buy stuff. Does it, though? Yes. Okay, yes. But, whatever. Ted Bundy was born Theodore Robert Cowell in Burlington, Vermont, November 24th, 1946. Older than my mom. I don't really care. Oh, you know what? We should care. He was born at the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers. Home for Unwed Mothers? Do they still have those? No. It's called, I don't know, like half of my relatives are unwed mothers. Lots of baby daddies. You know what I mean? So known locally, this was Lizzie's Lund's home for naughty ladies. Wow. Burn. Zing. Better than the original nickname, Lizzie Lund's Bastard Brasserie. I swear, every time I see that word brasserie, yeah. Okay. His mother, 22-year-old Eleanor Louise Cowell. 22-year-old. 22-year-old Eleanor Louise Cowell was a little shaky on the identity of her son's father. Originally, the man listed on Ted's birth certificate was Lloyd Marshall, reportedly a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania and an Air Force veteran, and a salesman shortly thereafter. For unknown reasons, Louise changed the name to Jack Worthington, of whom we know nothing. Okay, so first, Ted's father was Lloyd Marshall. Then she changed it to Jack Worthington. And supposedly he was a sailor who impregnated Louise in Philadelphia. Ben Kissel says, literally the most made-up name of all time since Engelbert Humperdinck. For my money, the most made-up sounding name I've ever heard was Dick Trickle. But who am I to correct you? He was a race car driver. I had to look him up. We didn't need those little banters. They could have let Marcus just keep rolling through this stuff. In the definitive Ted Bundy book, what? The stranger beside me, criminologist Anne Rule, speculated that Bundy was the product of an incestuous relationship between Louise and her father. Ew, Samuel Cowell. Gross. She was 22. If this is true, she was 22. While Rule with a capital R provides no hard evidence to support this claim, that hasn't stopped the allegation from being bandied about the truth for decades. Somebody say that to me. Hi, Wally. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you can hear me. I guess you can hear me, right? Can you hear me? Go ahead and put it in the chat. If you don't hear me, then I am guessing you don't hear me and you're just reading, okay? Good for you, though. Okay, so anyways, that's kind of gross, but here we go. It seems as if most felt that the only other option was that Bundy's father was a mysterious character out of one of the darker Tom Waits songs, perhaps even the devil himself, come to the city of brotherly love. I mean, yeah, picture that. Oh my goodness. See why they're showing a clown? Red rum, these little blocks. He looks like an Archie comic. Are you guys seeing how cute this is? People look for any sort of explanation for the behavior they feel rubs against the fibers of society. An explanation is comforting and makes it feel like there's a purpose or logic in a random universe. Unfortunately, a lot of these monsters are made at random, like sharks. Thank you for letting me know you can hear me. Bundy's parentage is probably no more remarkable than that of any other illegitimate kid in Philly whose mother provided shore leave entertainment and forgot to use a condom. Either way, the Cowell family, proud, upstanding Methodists, one and all, decided to spare Ted the shame of illegitimacy and instead raise him as the son of Louise's parents. Okay, so the grandparents. This is common. My mom is a grandparent. She's actually a great-grandmother, and she's raising her great-grandchild, who's like 7 years old. I mean, go mom. She wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, go her. Go grandmas. Good job. Anyway, so they instead raise him as their own, Eleanor and Samuel. This lie was repeated to every person who came in contact with the Cowells, from friends and family to the neighbors next door. In other words, it was a secret begging to be discovered. Ben Kissel says, always use a condom, especially in Philadelphia. Have we learned nothing from one of Tom Hanks's most famous roles? Protect yourself. Technically, Ted got a lot more consideration than many other kids get. Your parents really have to give a shit about your birth to start an entire conspiracy. Ask Dick Cheney how hard it must have been to put his big one together. Hashtag, or, footnote 9/11. Good Lord. We don't need no conspiracies right now. So anyways, Ted's grandfather, Samuel, was said to be a terrible human being in every freaking way. Animal cruelty was a favorite pastime of his. Not a cat in the neighborhood was safe from Samuel swinging them by their tails. Oh no. Predictably, Samuel was violent toward his family as well. It was reported that he once threw Ted's aunt down a flight of stairs for oversleeping. And he blamed it on the dog. Just kidding. Interestingly, Ted said he got along famously with his grandfather. Oh, I bet he did. Psycho. Anyways, he said that in an interview with Dr. Dorothy Lewis. And that he even had a special bond with his grandfather who raised him as, like, his own son. Ew. It's possible that the man saw something of himself in his grandson. Pure evil, maybe. I don't know. Whether it was his grandfather's creeping influence or the awakening of an inborn darkness, it soon became apparent that young Ted was anything but normal. His Aunt Julia claimed to have awoken one day to find her 3-year-old nephew standing at the foot of her bed smiling. When she lifted the covers, she found that he had arranged 3 butcher knives around her body, all pointing inward. Holy shit! Okay, Aunt Julia, did you just make up that shit, or was it true? This little 3-year-old Ted Bundy put some knives up in your bed. Come on. Also, the origin story of the incredible chef David Chang. See, Henry, I don't get that. Whether it was this specific incident, the violent home situation, or the fear that Ted would discover the secret of his lineage as he grew older, Louise Cowell packed up her son and moved across the country to Tacoma, Washington shortly thereafter. All right, so she's probably what, in her mid to late 20s, and she gets the hell out of there. Grandpa must have been really evil, you know what I mean? Okay. In 1951, Louise met a diminutive hospital cook named Johnny Culpepper Bundy at a Methodist get-together. Oh dear, he got the name from his stepfather. Fuck me. That means his poor stepfather is like, what the hell? Within a few months, the two were married, and 5-year-old Ted was rechristened to Theodore Robert Bundy. Google it. Johnny tried to bond with his new stepson, but Ted never took to playing ball or going on fishing trips with his stepfather. It's hard to bond with a man with pepper in his name. Ask Barry Pepper. Too spicy for friends. Culpepper Bundy sounds like a tool used to clean out Uncle Eddie's sewage tank in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. The crapper is full. Hand me that Culpepper Bundy hose. Culpepper Bundy hose. Well, you know, they tried. Again, they're little comments. We don't need them right now, but I get it. From a young age, Bundy begged out for father-son activities by playing sick. Begged? That's all I can really think is by pronouncing it like that. Bundy begged out of father-son activities by playing sick because his stepfather was, in Bundy's words, not too bright. What a dum-dum. Just like me, little dum-dum. He saw his stepfather as a lesser than because he worked a blue-collar, yet entirely respectable job. Excuse me? Bundy? What, a 7-year-old Bundy looking down on your stepdad? What a douche. His stepfather's choice of profession was subsequent inability to provide an upper crust lifestyle for his family grated on him. Even as a young boy, he believed he deserved better. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's Bandied. Thank you, Brian. And don't laugh at me, okay? I don't read good. Hi, Susan. What a brat, right? It's like, who raised the rich kid, and he's not even rich? Anyways, Bundy was known to be a solitary child. His only solace came from listening to the radio. He particularly enjoyed talk radio, but not for the content. In an interview given in 1980, Bundy said he liked the radio because he felt as if he were eavesdropping on other people's conversations, a hint of his building sociopath tendencies. Ew, what a psycho who thinks that they're listening to other people's conversations, especially like listening to the ball game, or what else do I listen to in the radio? I used to listen to, what was it, Coast to Coast? Paranormal shit, you know. I don't want to condone supporting violent criminals, but if he had subscribed to our Patreon, I'd have accepted his money. Last Podcast on the Left cannot be held responsible for the actions of our fans. None of us are okay, not that we're not criminals. There's probably some criminals, but I think we all have like kind of a tight bond. Us last podcast kids, people, weirdos. Hail yourself. The other thing Bundy was apparently a freak for, even as a small child, was pornography. Supposedly, before Bundy even arrived in Washington, he had willied away countless hours in his grandfather's shed, looking at the hardcore collection the old man kept stashed behind the garden tools. Bundy said that seeing these magazines at such a young age essentially broke his brain. I wonder what kind of magazines they were. Just regular Playboy? Give me a break. Those are fantasy novels. Tellingly, though, When he was finally outed as a killer, it was found that his masturbation material was not the stuff of torture and bondage, but rather a magazine devoted to the art of cheerleading called Cheerleader. I don't know if you could see, you can't see my face right now, but Ted Bundy totally seems like a wannabe cheerleader, right? Wait, a radio fanatic who also likes smut? What's next? A professional cornhole player who also likes buckets of beer? I know, right? They go hand in hand. Are we all monsters? There's a period of my life when if I put two cantaloupes next to each other, I would become aroused. When I was a kid, I got most of my porn from the illegal cable box my family had, like a real millennial. I'm just trying to say the porn didn't make him bad. Oh my God, what have I done? No, it's true. Porn does not make you bad. And I don't judge. And they don't judge. We don't judge. Ooh, handsome. I would like a piece of candy soon. Okay. So yeah, continue and listen. It gets more disturbing. Once Bundy was in his teens, however, his actions began to pattern those we see in many serial killers. He was a pathological liar and an accomplished shoplifter, and he was arrested twice on suspicion of car theft and burglary. Unfortunately, the details of those crimes are lost to history because the records were shredded once he turned 18. But one detail we do know about his kleptomania was that he was most fond of stealing ski equipment. I know why, because skiing is an expensive sport. Bundy was indeed a skier, but as a lower class kid, the sport's expenses were essentially prohibitive. He said he would get sideways glances from his peers when he showed up with the latest and greatest ski equipment, but he learned early on that he could get away with a crime if he maintained a nonchalant attitude. What? In his mind, he was owned the finer things in life by dint of his very existence, and he was determined to reach that special status by any means necessary. Oh my goodness. In trying to explain his motivations to investigators, Bundy said, quote, I felt kind of deprived, at a disadvantage to those people who had the money, the successful parents, all the goodies. Yeah, me too, buddy. Henry Zebrowski, his little... Hi, Amy. Henry Zebrowski, oh no. Yeah, there we go. Here we go. What is this? Going back? Across the spectrum of true crime, we see a theme of this I'm actually supposed to be a very important millionaire mentality. This is used to justify a superior attitude toward other people and help validate crimes against society. David Berkowitz had the same mentality as did Jim Jones and L. Ron Hubbard, and a lot of people who live at the Greyhound station in the West Hollywood. And also here in the Bay Area. Part of Bundy's desire to ascend the ranks of society led him to the University of Washington. Good job. The year was 1967, and while much of America's youth was being swept up in free love, good drugs, and some of the best music ever recorded, Bundy focused himself on two things that could not have been more diametrically opposed to the burgeoning, where you at, Brian? How do I pronounce this? Burgeoning hippie movement. Skiing in China. What the hell? Skiing in China? Both also fun words for cocaine, which I imagine was around quite a bit. Skiing in China? While skiing was Bundy's gateway into a more privileged social echelon, I think. Learning to speak Chinese, oh, is supposed to be his pathway to power. Ah. Once Bundy arrived at UW, he enrolled in an intensive Chinese language course solely because he believed that the Chinese were likely going to take over the world sooner rather than later. Is it, we all know it didn't really happen, right? It didn't really happen. Let's see, what took over the world? I don't know, Pokemon? What else? Hipster clothing. Oh, TikTok, that's taken over the world. This really helps me understand his love for Richard Nixon. Throughout his middling college career, Bundy continued skiing, which eventually led him to meet Stephanie Brooks, who would turn out to be both the love of his life and his victim prototype. He'd burn rides up to the mountains with her and slowly fell in love with the beautiful brunette from a rich, stable family. While the feelings were not fully reciprocated, Stephanie certainly felt a kind of puppy love for Ted. But from her perspective, he was immature, emotional, and undependable. Perfect for a college fling, but definitely not husband material. In other words, Stephanie was slumming it every time she hopped into bed with Bundy, and she knew it. Slumming it. That's so, we don't say that. Though Bundy himself was not living a posh lifestyle, he tried his best to nuzzle into the upper class, both through these interactions and a series of part-time jobs in more moneyed settings, like a busboy at a yacht club. However, he didn't use his yacht club employment as an opportunity to hobnob. Instead, he preferred stealing from club members. This propensity for theft, lying, and straight-up sociopathy naturally drew him to the world of politics. Kissel? Ted Bundy is the perfect poster boy for the alt-right. His politics are terrible, he dresses well, and he's constantly attempting to cover up his weird fetishes. That's hilarious. But unlike fellow politician turned serial killer John Wayne Gacy, Democrat from Illinois, Ted Bundy was a dyed-in-the-wool lifelong Republican. These two men's motivations for getting into the game differed as well. Gacy looked at politics as a way to gain influence and inflate his ego. His brand was sleazy and local, true Chicago style. Bundy, on the other hand, liked standing next to those in power. He was cleaner and more formal. While Gacy wanted theme parties and parades, Bundy wanted policy. Maybe he also liked the dichotomy of knowing there was a homicidal gremlin rolling on the inside and a put-together Republican on the outside. And he gets the extra kick out of being a contrarian during a very liberal part of history. There are so many fun ways to make white people horny. Oh my gosh. That's me. That's not me. That's Henry Zebrowski. He's outrageous. And I love him. Ben Kissel goes on to say he would support the death penalty for people who wear white after Labor Day, don't own a yacht, and don't rewind VHS rentals like Kathleen Turner in Serial Mom. I love Kathleen Turner. Romancing the Stone. Jewel of the Nile. She does an audiobook of a Greek mythology audiobook. Anyways. In 1968, at the age of 22, Bundy was appointed both the Seattle chairman and the assistant state chairman of the new majority for Rockefeller, backing the titular Nelson Rockefeller in his third unsuccessful run for president. Bundy traveled to that year's Republican National Convention in Miami, only to have his political dreams crushed when Rockefeller was destroyed at the hand of the by then unstoppable political machine that was Richard Nixon. Take a little sippy poo real quick. Take a little break. Oh yeah, that's some good cola. Oh yeah. Sander! Ryan! What up, Twitch people? I'm just figuring this shit out on my own. What page are we on? Taking a break. Should I really be taking a break? Ooh, stopping the share. Taking a break from reading the last podcast book on the left. It's just so charming and awesome. I love it. Don't you love it? Because it's freaking awesome. And tonight we're reading Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy in the house. Oh yeah. I'm such a ding dong. Streaming. You know what? Yeah, what's up? You know what, Ryan? You know what? Sander? I should get one of those, what are those things called? You're like, I don't know, what's called? I should get one of those stream controllers, right? That's what they're called. Stream controllers. Yeah. It's so funny. It's not funny, but it's so funny. So I set up the Zoom because I thought people wanted to read with me. Turns out, nobody. And nobody. But you know what? That's okay. I'll let you know. I'm still going to read. I mean, I want to. I want to read. It's getting dark. I'm not going to read. Okay. We're on page 22. All right. Fellas. Folks. You can set hotkeys on your keyboard. Oh, thank you, Ryan, for telling me that. But I'm new at this. So, in order for me to learn something, I'm going to have to watch a video on YouTube. Or someone has to show me how to do it. And then I'm like, oh yeah, and I take notes. And then I practice it. But me going off and trying to learn it is really hard. I know how I learn, and I learn by like watching and then having somebody show me and then doing. I can't just read about it. And I don't like reading. Anyways, I do actually. I like reading when I'm not alone. Anyways, so I'll get back to the book. Page 22, last podcast on the left. Love you. And yeah, we're going to go back to the book. We're diving back into the story. All right? Yeah. Here we go. I know I'm such a weirdo. Anyways, this stupid guy had a wannabe political career. Did it happen? No. So, guess what? He dropped out of the University of Washington. Why? Like, what the hell? He eventually landed a job as a driver and a bodyguard for another political candidate, Art Fletcher. Fletcher was headed for the lieutenant governor spot, but the only thing he gained from that campaign was a mention of Ted Bundy on his Wikipedia page. Ooh, it must have been a nobody. How did he get hired as a bodyguard? Yes, find me the man who most resembles an LL Bean model so I can feel safe, right? After the Fletcher defeat, Bundy returned to Philly, the city of his conception, where he enrolled at Temple University for one half-hearted, aimless semester. Okay. Wait, I'm going to go back to Facebook, because that's where it's cracking. Anyways. We're almost there. So, afterward, he traveled to Vermont and supposedly discovered the truth behind his parentage. Ooh! That he is born of incest. His parents were his grandparents, and his sister was his mother. Ooh! Disgustingly, this is an actual genre in Pornhub. I know. I mean, I don't know, but that's what the boys say. They say Pornhub is getting crazy with the incest stuff. So, you know, forget it. Okay, guess what? I don't need my headphones, and I don't know why I was wearing them, but they were hurting my ears. In the true crime genre, this event has been put forth time and time again as the breaking point for Ted Bundy. Probably, but this claim is circumstantial at best. It may have been a catalyst, but it was by no means an immediate cause and effect. It was another 3 years before he attempted his first murder. Wait a minute. Oh, okay, yeah, so he didn't start murdering people right when he found out that, I don't know, his grandparents were not his parents, right? And that his sister, his big sister, was really his mom. What's even more telling, though, is that multiple high school friends later reported that they clearly remember him unironically calling Louise mom on multiple occasions. It's very likely that by the time he returned to Vermont, Bundy had known the truth for years. Yeah, he probably put it all together, or had like a repressed memory or a flashback. Have you ever had one of those? They're kind of traumatic, but with therapy, you can you'll be fine. You get over it. Narcissists like Bundy always have to control their story arc. Ugh, this was putting in his own chapter headings. Okay, him putting in his own chapter headings, right? He saw his whole life as this dramatic tale that everyone would read about one day. Now he's being played by Zac Efron, and I'm mad because of how sick his abs are. Oh, shit. Zac Efron did play Ted Bundy. I have not seen it. I don't know. Should I see it? Who saw it? Let me know if you've seen the Ted Bundy movie with Zac Efron. Because I don't like to watch that shit. I like to listen to it by these goofballs. You know what I'm saying? Anyways. Alright, so no matter what happened during his adventure out east, the fact remains that in the springs of 1969, Bundy returned to Washington a changed man. No longer the rudderless busboy of the past, he emerged from his experience in Philadelphia as a straight A student. What, did he lie about it? He set aside his fantasy of Chinese domination and re-enrolled at the University of Washington with a major in psychology. In this, Ted seemed to have found his calling. Oh, his psychology background also gave birth to perhaps one of the most misunderstood episodes in Bundy's life. His time as a suicide hotline volunteer. This era was well documented by Ann Rule, a former Seattle police officer turned student and the author of the aforementioned book, The Stranger Beside Me. Rule answered phones right along Bundy during the summer of 1970, spending 12 hours a day with the most notorious serial killer in history. This is the only redeeming quality of Ted Bundy's life. It's kind of the opposite of how Michael Vick killed dogs, but now he helps them. Donate to his foundation here. Yeah, no. Bundy's time as a volunteer has been the focus of many discussions when it comes to praising the mind per parsing. Maybe that's the correct word to pronounce it. Brian, where you at? Parsing the mind of a serial killer. The notion that a sociopath murderer would willingly save lives by working a suicide hotline naturally raises the question of his possible motivations for doing this. The answer is surprisingly mundane. Working for the hotline was a work-study requirement for his psychology degree. Wah, wah. All right, hold on. I'm going to let my dog in. Are you in or are you in? Hey. Marsh. I'm not sure if she... Hello. Hi. Yes. Hello. Welcome. Welcome, Marshmallow. Welcome. Okay, back to the story. So, why did he answer, the suicide hotline? It was a requirement for his psychology degree. He and Rule, the author mentioned earlier, he and Rule worked side by side as partners for months. According to her, they made a good team. He spoke to callers with patience and empathy, in a drawl that she described as most courtly. And she considered him a close friend. Ew, oh my gosh. For Ted, though, it was just another role to play. A little actor. But whether or not he appeared normal, there was still something vicious bubbling beneath the surface of Bundy's psyche. Around this time, he began acting in a way that was relationally sociopathic, briefly bringing his old flame, Stephanie Brooks, back into the mix, while ensnaring a completely different woman into a decades-long thrall. In September 1969, Bundy met and started dating a young single mother named Elizabeth, let's just say Cleffer. Correct me if I'm wrong, because just correct me if I'm wrong. She wasn't as pretty or blue-blooded as Stephanie Brooks, but she was devoted to Ted and would stay by his side for a surprisingly length of time, even after Bundy was placed behind bars. Ugh. For the single ladies out there, when you're dating a new guy, here's a trick. Place a mannequin in your bed and invite the guy over. Casually put your phone on video record behind a teddy bear and hide in the closet with if the dude comes in and immediately starts strangling the mannequin, break up with him, y'all. This has been dating advice from Henry Z. I don't know. That's like out of left field, but whatever. Bundy's greatest trick was convincing Elizabeth that no matter what he did, she was lucky to have him. She was so blind to who he really was that she didn't even notice or refused to notice when he reconnected with Stephanie Brooks in early 1970. See, preying on the young single mother. Okay, so let me just make sure. Yeah, since Stephanie had first dumped Ted, he'd undergone an impressive transformation. In addition to earning his psychology degree, he started becoming successful in politics on a state level, was admitted to 2 law schools, and had even saved a local toddler from drowning. Wow, what a good old boy. To Stephanie, he had grown up, but in reality, these changes were not born of any desire to turn his life around. Instead, Ted Bundy had become a better man in order to destroy Stephanie Brooks, using his accomplishments as the cheese in the trap. Was he that scorned? He's just doing all this to get revenge? You know how they say... What do they say? Oh, the best revenge for an ex is to do good, or to, not even acknowledge them, or yada, yada, yada. You know what I'm saying. If he was Bobby Bonilla and this was about Bobby defying his father and winning at baseball, I would be rooting for him, but it's not. Also, I'm not sure about Bobby Bonilla suffering too much hardship. I think his dad might have loved him. Fucking Henry. When Stephanie heard about Ted's shifts in personality and social standing, she was smitten. Now that he had seemingly transformed into the man she needed him to be, the two talked on the phone and visited each other as much as they could. Marriage was even discussed. However, right when he was on the verge of proposing, the manipulation began, and he slowly and methodically broke her effing heart. Sex became perfunctory and emotionless. He'd ditch her for days on end, and a fictional ex-girlfriend who supposedly badgered Ted for an abortion was created to sow phony discord. After months of this behavior, Stephanie confronted him about his emotional 180, but his only response was a flat, "Stephanie, I have no idea what you mean, psycho." I just know exactly. I don't want to get into it, but I know exactly what kind of guy or the tone that a guy will take when they say, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. What do you mean? What do you mean? I'm ignoring you. What do you mean?" I'm just a crazy girl after all. What do I know? Anyways. Okay. Alright, so Stephanie, I have no idea what you mean. Smart enough to see the game he was playing, she never spoke to him again. You go, girl. There are more red flags in this relationship than what you see in Google Maps when you search for bagel shops in Brooklyn. Also, this motherfucker has his psycho tendencies baked in. Dude is legitimately scary. And this is before he started killing people? Right, Henry? So all you men and women out there, don't be acting so crazy because it means you're crazy. And I'm not crazy. Just so you know. I'm normal. Just kidding. The sequence of events has generally been described as one of the triggers that thrust Bundy down the killing path. But it's hard to say for sure. After all, he'd orchestrated the whole charade himself, and the only rejection was his own. It was worth noting, though, that in the same month that his relationship with Stephanie Brooks ended, he began following women home from the bars without their knowledge. Creeper status. Fully engaged. It could be that he'd been planning this all along, treating Stephanie Brooks' heartbreak as just another item on the checklist on the way to something more nefarious. But it is uncanny that the vast majority of Bundy's victims had long-haired, parted down the middle, just like Stephanie Brooks. Even though his internal sociopathy was begging him to go further, Bundy needed one more ingredient to make the leap into violent assault. Alcohol! King alcohol! Gimme that alcohol. He began drinking heavily in this era, finding that when he was drunk, the inhibitions that kept him from acting on his dark impulses were removed. In early December 1973, leaving a bar after a long night of boozing, he followed a woman home on a whim. Oh my god. First of all, I'm gonna have to take another break. What is this break for, you ask? This break. What am I doing? Yeah. This break is for me to finish my drink. I mean, we're talking about alcohol, right? So let's get this show on the road. Actually, I don't drink. I mean, I do drink. I mean, I have a drinking problem. All right, let me just tell you. Can I just tell you what I'm doing right now? No, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this. I did it. I don't have a drinking problem. I have a Coke problem. That was so good and refreshing. All right, let's wrap it up. 10 minutes to go. Let's get some heads rolling. All right, off with your head. Get the heads rolling. Can we just go straight to the end where they catch him? No, we can't. You know why? Because this fool, he actually like breaks out. He escapes. I don't know. It's funny. Oh, but did you see the Zac Efron movie? Did you see it? Let me know if you saw it, okay? I don't know. Does he do a good job? I don't know. Do I care? No. I mean, who really wants to play Ted Bundy and, like, do a good job at it? What does that mean? I don't know. But I do want to get going, so. Anyways, I'll go back to, cancel. And, let's go back to reading, if you guys are down with me. Hit like and subscribe, everybody. No, I'm practicing, right? I'm getting all this caring about your craft. I'm trying to practice, get better. You know what I'm saying? I deserve a burger for this, that's for damn sure. Anyways, here we go. Back to the book. Fools. Okie dokie, artichoke. So, yeah, the booze, right? Who loves the booze? You know what would go good in that yoo-hoo? A little rum. Rumpelstiltskin. Anyways. I don't recall seeing this trope in Bud Light commercials. They cut it out of the American run, but it's still in the Dutch version. So anyways, as he followed this woman, Ted took a shortcut and got ahead of her. Then he grabbed a 2x4 he found next to the dumpster, and waited in the shadows. This is just like Passion, right? Passion Killer? I mean, it was kind of planned out, but anyways, I'll continue. But just before she crossed paths with Bundy, she took a left turn, possibly saving her damn life. However, instead of waking up the next morning feeling remorse, Bundy said he opened his eyes feeling both terrified and excited. Boner alert, boner alert. You got a boner if you're a psycho, weirdo. A little taste of the excitement. You ever seen Nacho Libre when he's describing, like, being a wrestler? I can taste the excitement. Anyways, he'd gotten a taste of the hunt, and the only thing that would satisfy his newfound hunger would be a successful catch. Okay, so my favorite, Henry goes into this right now. The boozed up stalking and his success with scamming Stephanie seemed to be the first rungs of the ladder Bundy climbed up to becoming a serial killer. It's the same system of allowances that gives these fuckers the self-permission to start killing. They slowly build a world where murder becomes the natural solution to all their problems. It's like when you're on a no-carb diet and one Thursday you have too many skinny Ritas and then a couple of French fries, and by Monday, holy shit, Henry. And by Monday, you're a loaf of bread for breakfast. This is my struggle. Henry, honey, I'm with you there, dude. Did I tell you guys that I have the same body as Henry Zebrowski? We're both short, round, got soft bodies, and I don't know, the guy is slowly becoming my idol. Emboldened by this first venture, Bundy went out again, the next few nights, seeking an opportunity to strike. 3 days after the failed attempt, he came across a woman fumbling with her keys as she tried to open her car door. Sneaking up behind her, he bashed her in the head using a club, possibly the same 2x4 from his earlier effort. However, the blow wasn't enough to knock her out. Instead, she fell on the ground, screaming, sending Bundy running off into the night. Bundy went out on countless occasions after that, but he only found a victim who was just right a handful of times. But he only found a victim who was just right. See, it's like, he sounds like a pussy to me. He doesn't sound that crazy. He sounds like a sicko that has certain, he's specific about what he likes, right? Even before he's killed his first person, he's like out there just picking and choosing, right? You know how they do. Although Bundy's system was simple, serial killers are often captured when their system breaks down. As the urge to kill rises, the less patient they have, the less patience they have when it comes to finding a victim, and less patience means more mistakes, right? Passion killing, all that shit. I keep saying a passion killing, like a crime of passion. Kind of like the mom from Bob's Burgers. Her name's Linda. Bob goes and sits on Franny, which is a gerbil. It's like a hamster at Teddy's Halloween party. And she, at the end, she goes, it was a crime of passion. Anyways, you gotta like Bob's Burgers. As the infamous Ted Bundy quote goes, you learn what you need to kill and take care of the details. It's like changing a tire. The first time you're careful, but the 30th time you can't remember where you left the lug wrench. Hey, I want to teach them about carburetors, but all these guys want to do is murder. Bundy's forgetful mechanic school. Okay, whatever. Bundy claimed his urge to assault this woman coincided with the appearance of what he called the entity. Oh, give me a effing freaking break. The entity? Is this his demon? Are we going there now? Hey, Ryan, what do you know about criminal psychology? You know what I mean? Know what I'm saying? Oh, hey, I got friends messaging me that they were listening, and that makes me really happy. So anyways, nobody's checking me out on Facebook, and that's okay. I don't care. I'm not doing this for people to, I mean, I don't like reading alone. But I like to read, especially this sick shit. Entity. Duh. While his rational mind was supposedly battling the constant craving to attack, the entity was what got him into the streets to look for a victim. However, he said that it was not the entity itself that committed the murder. The mysterious presence was only responsible for the assaults. Bundy claimed that it was his rational self who committed the murders in order to cover up the entity's crimes. Ain't that right, Henry Thomas? Kind of fun fact, The Entity is also a horror movie starring Barbara Hershey. Thanks. Thank you so much. Good job, Ben. Following that first assault, Bundy switched tactics and began seeking... Okay, so he hit a woman. He hit a woman in the head. But it didn't go anywhere, right? He hit her in the head, she screamed... And he ran away with his hands in the air like, woo, like he's scared, right? All right, so, oh shit. I just saw the word necrophilia. So here we go. He's going to switch his tactics and begin seeking victims via window peeping. Window peeper? What is it called? Entity suggests disassociation, paranoia, schizophrenia. Roger that. Self-medicated with alcohol. Roger that. You are a good little, what are you, a little criminologist? Oh. Anyways, here we go. After carefully scouting for his first home invasion, he found an opportunity with Karen Sparks, who had a basement apartment near his law school. From the moment he entered her apartment on January 4th, 1974, Bundy was swift, cruel, and full of wrath. He snuck into her room while she was asleep, quickly twisted a metal bar from her bed frame, and beat her unconscious. Then he sexually assaulted her with the same metal bar he'd used to beat her half to death. No! Owie. You better bash my head in so hard that I am dead before you assault me in that way, sexually. Karen was found by her roommate under blood-soaked sheets the following afternoon. She had survived, but was left with permanent brain damage. Ugh! Bundy would ensure his next victim wouldn't even be left with that. Better catch me outside. Catch me outside. I will. Wayne Brady will slap a bitch. Just a few days after his attack on Karen Sparks, he picked Linda Ann Healy as his next target. He stalked her for weeks, watching her every move and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came to January 31st, 1974. Almost 1 month to the day after his last conversation with Stephanie Brooks. Good Lord, this Stephanie Brooks character. He broke into Healy's bedroom, knocked her unconscious, wrapped her in a sheet, and carried her out to his infamous VW bug, taking her to a spot where he and Stephanie had occasionally gone on ski trips. Bundy proceeded to rape Linda Ann before strangling her to death. With this murder, Bundy claimed to have moved on from amateur status to what he called his prime, or predator phase. Predator my ass. You wish you were cool like Predator. For the next 7 months, there was not a co-ed in Seattle who was truly safe from him. He has no business having this Eric Trump level of confidence. Unlike many serial killers who go years between their first, second, or even third kills, Ted Bundy had, to put in sports terms, one hell of a rookie year. 2 months after Linda Ann Healy came Donna Manson, who disappeared moments after leaving her house to go to a jazz concert. Jazz concert. Everyone, just warning you. Don't go to a jazz concert. Don't do that. See, this could happen. Next was Susan Rancourt, bludgeoned in the head with a tire iron while she was in the middle of doing a load of laundry. Oh, hell no. She, too, took a trip to the mountains with Ted Bundy. After these 3 young women mysteriously disappeared, some members of the community came forward with reports of a suspicious, handsome man with his arm in a sling driving a VW Beetle and approaching women on the street. One woman said the stranger asked her to help carry a load of books to his car. But when she noticed it was missing its front passenger seat, removed by Bundy to facilitate a quick kidnapping, her flight instinct took hold and she ran away. Other women reported similar encounters. This trick became Bundy's signature move, preying on women by pretending to be injured and then using their kindness as an opening to attack them in vulnerable moments. This is exactly like Silence of the Lambs, right? Buffalo Bill's like, oh, can you help me move this? My arm is broken. And the girl's like, okay, sure, mister. And then she helps him, and then boom, knocks her out. He rips open her shirt. It's a size 12. Just like me. And then he lotions up her skin, and he feeds her chicken bones, and then she takes his little dog, and you know the rest. Hi, Margie. Sorry, I had to close the door. I let my dog in, and it was not the pizza man. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. After the first 3 murders, both the frequency and the brutality of the attacks escalated. Take Brenda Ball. Bundy's confession of the Brenda Ball murder included an admission to the most unnatural act to man, necrophilia. He claimed to have met Ball when he picked her up from the side of the road as she was hitchhiking. Don't do that! They went to his apartment and had consensual sex, but that wasn't enough for the so-called entity. Bundy strangled Ball and claims he then had sex with the corpse. He kept the body in the closet for days, pulling it out like a favorite toy when the entity wanted more. Ew! When the smell got to be too much, Bundy took the body to his dump site in the mountains before moving on to the next. This just really grinds my gears. So he moved on to his next victim in just a week. Now, we don't know if this story is true, as the only evidence for it comes from Bundy himself. It's difficult to understand the motivations in his confessions. At times, he was forthcoming with details of his crimes, while at others, he conveyed the information entirely in third person, as if to remove himself from the situation. For example, at the age of 14, Bundy had a job tossing newspapers. In 1961, 8-year-old Anne Marie Bird disappeared from a location that was on his route. Her body was never recovered. But in 1989, Ted told investigator Robert Keppel that even though he had confessed to over 30 murders, there were some he would never talk about. Then he switched to a third-person narrative, saying those killings included a murder committed at a young age against a child victim close to his home. This type of obfuscation is fairly common among highly compartmentalized killers, the ones who manage to live a normal life while indulging in their macabre hobby. In order to blend into society, these men have to separate themselves into different personas, and those personas rarely overlap. For killers like Bundy, who believe they are superior to the rest of society, control is what they seek, be it with their victims or in the narrative of their crimes. Whether it's true or not that Bundy was a necrophiliac, he liked to make people feel extremely uncomfortable. It was an intrinsic part of his sexual gamesmanship. He knew he could say nothing, or he knew he could say anything and people would believe him. And so the myth-making became another form of power. People were quick to accept the monstrous persona that Bundy helped shape during his incarceration as truth. He, in turn, got pleasure from increasing the gap between his life as a civilian and his life as a serial killer. The farther away a serial killer can push his normal life from his deviant life in terms of extremism, the better the serial killer can show how capable a predator he or she, you're welcome, is. Right? I mean, I don't know, like, ooh, look at me and all my range of acting. It means I've got talent. No, it means you're really sick, dude. Hey, dude, you're hella sick. Less than a fortnight after the murder of Brenda Ball, Bundy embarked on the first of what would be a series of incredibly audacious crimes. The murder of Gorgon Hawkins. I want to say Psycho Gorman Hawkins, a student at the University of Washington. Her disappearance gained the most notoriety of his murders in Seattle because of the most supernatural way in which she disappeared. She was walking back to her sorority house after visiting her boyfriend at the fraternity. The two houses were located in mere 90 feet away from each other, connected by an alleyway. And as if we needed any more help making this feel like a slasher flick, 2 students saw her when she was just 40 feet from home. But in those 40 feet, Psycho Gorman Hawkins disappeared without a sound. The theory as to what happened is that while Bundy was laying in wait was lying in wait for a victim, he heard one of the students at the frat house refer to Psycho Gorman using a familiar nickname, George. As she walked past Bundy's bug, he may have whispered this name, Psycho Gorman. I mean George. Then, quick as a rattlesnake, he swung his tire iron and knocked her unconscious, killing her instantly. Damn! Psycho Gorman Hawkins is one of the few who fell victim to Ted Bundy, whose body was never been found. Dang it! Psycho Gorman! Yeah, right, Buffalo Bill. That's right. The fact that he didn't need much prep before abducting his victim is part of what made Bundy so deadly. So here's a tip. Don't stare at your phone when you're walking at night. You could be a target. Buy a flashlight or a whip and use those instead. Whip your arms around your head like a helicopter and make cat noises. And now you're being scary and getting in some cardio. I'll just take off my shirt and whip it around like a helicopter and say, North Carolina, come on and raise up. Right? Take your shirt off, whip it around your head just like a helicopter. Right? Okay. I'm a loser, baby. So why don't you kill me? Nope, just kidding. By June 1974, all of Washington state was on high alert, specifically young women. This presented Bundy with a problem. His old tricks would no longer work. Nobody was going to venture into a dark corner with a stranger now that these disappearances were subsequent searches were almost daily news. To circumvent this, he changed his M.O., or at least partly. Ted stuck with the injury ruse, but instead of doing it under the cover of night, he started claiming victims from a place and time where no one would expect a snatch-and-grab killer. At the beach in broad daylight. On July 14, Bundy began approaching solitary women at Lake Sammamish, 12 miles east of Seattle, where over 40,000 people were trying to cool off on a scorching day. With his arm in a cast, he charmingly asked women for assistance, attaching his sailboat to his car. Many followed him off the beach, assuming they were only going to the parking lot. But once there, Bundy added a second location. Actually, the boat was at his parents' place up the road. Never help anyone, right? Woman after woman refused upon hearing this new information. But at 12:30 p.m., 23-year-old Janice Ott offered to help. Bundy took her to an abandoned house, raped and terrorized her for hours, and then left her tied up, still alive. Ew. He returned to the house at around 5 p.m. with Denise Naslund, who had been taken in by the same ploy. She was raped while Janice watched before he proceeded to strangle them both. Their bodies were dumped only 2 miles away in Lake Sammamish. Near the bodies of Linda Ann Healy and Brenda Ball and Susan Rancourt. Police were once again baffled by the disappearances, especially because they had occurred during the day. But in an act of hubris, Bundy had given his real name every time he had approached a potential victim. Police now knew they were looking for a Ted, but what they didn't have, surprisingly, was a solid sketch. One of Bundy's greatest advantages as a serial killer was that his facial features seemed to morph and change in a way that bordered on the paranormal. He was known to be handsome, but every person who sketched the mysterious Ted could never seem to draw him with any recognizable facial features. Every police sketch of Bundy looks like it's drawn by talentless hack trying to get into art school to waste their parents' money. Jesus, Ben. Even so, the sketch of the man named Ted resembled him enough for coworkers, friends, and even his girlfriend Elizabeth to tease him for the similarities to the Sammamish beach killer. The sketch looked just like him. The man's name was Ted, and he reportedly drove a VW Bug just like Bundy. And yet, even the remote possibility of Ted Bundy being a murderer seemed like the most ridiculous idea in the world. How funny is that, huh? Ted, look, this serial rapist has the same name as you, and he drives the same exact car. Isn't that funny? Ted, put down the knife. This is hilarious. Bullshit. Everyone is a suspect, okay? Alright, now let's get back. Conveniently for Bundy, he'd already accepted an offer from the University of Utah to attend law school in Salt Lake City, just as investigators were presented with a few promising leads about Seattle's co-ed killer. He left town to embark on a killing spree that would span at least 5 states and 2 coasts. Honestly, by Salt Lake City standards, Ted Bundy is the wildest guy since Jeremy Piven from PCU. PCU is a freaking great movie. But Bundy was leaving more than just victims behind. He was leaving Elizabeth as well. She doubted his promises that he would return to Seattle, but over the previous year, he'd introduced other worries into her mind, mostly concerning some of his more inexplicable possessions. Wait, you mean to tell me all the tubs that Ted brought home, they were not butter? I can't believe it. The plaster of Paris and crutches were odd things for a healthy man like Bundy to keep around. But according to him, he'd stolen the plaster just for the thrill of it, and it was storing the crutches as a personal favor to his landlord. Come and get me, snake boy. The fake mustache he kept around was strange as well. Oh my god, especially since Bundy had no trouble growing facial hair. Then there was the meat cleaver. Oh my gosh. There was a meat cleaver? Yes. Kept in a pinkish leather case, which was one of the few items he insured made the trip to Utah with him. Only serial killers and prop comedians carry around unneeded crutches. Both erode the fabric of our nation. We had a wheelchair for our sketch group for many years, and we used it to bring cases of beer from the car to the apartment. So we were a responsible part of the comedy community. That's cute. It wasn't just the objects that were suspect to Elizabeth. As Ted's killing spree continued, his behavior had become more and more erratic. He would leave in the middle of the night, giving Elizabeth no idea of where he was going, and he bought her the relatively benign book, The Joy of Sex, and used it as an excuse to incorporate near-death choke play and hard anal into their sex life. I don't think that's in the book. But weirdest of all, Elizabeth woke up in the middle of the night more than once to find Ted under the covers with a flashlight, studying every inch of her body as if she was no more than just an object. At the time, she played it off as one of his silly peccadillos. I don't know. But as his travels in the trail of the dead converged more and more, even she could not ignore the red flags of the past. Arriving in Utah, Bundy's old patterns of peeping, stalking, and scouting began anew almost immediately. This really makes me sick. Ugh. A woman named Teresa, or let's just call her Teresa, but I have a cousin named Teresa. A woman named Teresa wrote a letter to Anne Rule recounting how she vividly remembered a stranger skulking around a house that she shared with a few other young women in Salt Lake City during this era. They even got a clear look at his face one night while he was hiding behind a bush. But the sketch made then had no more of an effect in capturing Bundy than the ones in Washington had. He finally left them in peace, but not before leaving a large pile of feces under the window where they'd last seen him. He took a dump. When Ted Bundy was finally caught, Teresa was positive that he had been the mystery pooper. Ooh, the mad pooper. Again, Bob's Burgers is such a funny show, and there is a mad pooper in it. I'm gonna check on my Twitch people for a minute. The true measure of master craftsman adaptation. Quote unquote handsome. I know, right? Like, if I'm gonna describe a rapist or a peeping guy, or I don't know, I'm not gonna say handsome. Oh, he was very handsome. Well, oh my god. Anyways, back to the mystery pooper. If this was the worst thing he ever did, he'd only be guilty of being the funniest guy in the Delta House frat. Bundy's first victim in Utah was taken from the streets of the streets of Holiday on October 2nd, 1974. And before his first semester of law school was over, he would go on to kill 4 more women. In recounting these events, Bundy revealed that he had gone as far as to apply makeup to and style the hair of 2 of these victims after their deaths, telling investigators, if you've got the time, they can be anything you want them to be. Ew! Humans are not potato heads, Ted. None of us care about what you learn in your fancy law school books. Good Lord. I've heard law school is murder. Okay, I'll show myself out. Thank you. Oh my God. One victim, however, was able to escape Bundy's clutches, trading out his injury getup for a dependable fake mustache. He tugged 18-year-old Carol Durant into his VW at the mall by impersonating a police officer. When she noticed he was driving in the opposite direction of the police station, she tried opening the door. Bundy responded by slapping a handcuff on her wrists, but she fought back even after he pulled a gun on her. Amid this struggle, Carol managed to open the door and spill out onto the street. But Bundy was ready with a tire iron. Before he could land a fatal blow down upon her head, however, Durant kicked him in the groin and ran away to safety. That's my purse. I don't know you. I know. What a sicko. Doing the makeup and the hair of the dead bodies because he's still in love with that girl. This attempt had been a horrendous failure, one that Bundy planned to rectify that very night. So he improvised, driving just a few miles to the nearby town of Bountiful. There, he happened upon a school play and made the mistake of trying to talk a busy teacher into coming over to his car. After she said, "Hell nah, fool, I got these kids, I gotta videotape their stupid play." After she refused twice, he left the bug and instead lured a teenager named Deborah Kent from the parking lot. But in his haste to restore what ego he'd lost in the Carol Durant debacle, Bundy left behind a physical clue. Boom, a key, which fell out of his car in the process of kidnapping and eventually killing Deborah Kent. That key unlocked the handcuff that was still dangling from Carol's wrist when she was rescued. In addition to this, a witness had seen Bundy speeding off in his Beetle. It was now plainly obvious to the people of Utah that there was a serial killer in their midst, and he's from Washington, and so some people say he's handsome, and he also is kind of nerdy. Well, today this would be national, if not worldwide news. In the 70s, Even the murders of a handful of pretty young girls stayed somewhat regional. Few outside of Washington state knew the details of the Seattle killing spree, and similarly, word of Bundy's Utah murders barely spread beyond the borders of the state. The only person who noticed the connection was Lynn Banks, a close friend of Elizabeth Cleffer. Banks was one of the few humans whose hair stood on end in the presence of Ted Bundy. She had been flabbergasted when everyone had laughed off his similarities to Sammamish Ted. And during a family visit back home to Utah, she saw photos of the girls he'd killed there and immediately noticed how much they looked like his victims in Washington. Banks tried her best to sound the alarm in both states, but no one would take her seriously. It wasn't until authorities from Washington and Utah spoke to each other at a crime conference that a connection was made. But that didn't help in the physical capture of Ted Bundy. 7 more women would die before Ted was caught for the first time. Bundy's first arrest would be far less dramatic than his last. In the wee hours of the morning of August 16, 1975, he was pulled over for reckless driving in a residential neighborhood of Granger, Utah. When the officer asked what he'd been doing that night, Ted said he'd been to see the Towering Inferno at the local drive-in, but had gotten lost on his way home. Knowing there had been no showing of the Towering Inferno that night, the officer asked Bundy, "Would you please step out of the car?" What an idiot. Everyone knows that the release date of the Bollywood classic Chalet, it's like he wanted to get caught. F me. What a loser. If you're gonna make up like, oh, I was at the drive-in and I saw, I don't know, like Wanted or something, right? At least know if it's fucking playing in the theaters. Idiot. Someone worked with our research assistant. Look at this picture. Fucking A. Inside the trunk, the officer found a bag and pulled out Bundy's tools of the trade, one by effing one. A ski mask. Okay? Explain that. Okay, you're skiing in Utah, whatever. Wire? What do you need wire for, huh? An ice pick? Rope? Handcuffs? And the infamous tire iron. A deeper search turned up a flashlight, gloves, and a terrifying, custom-made pantyhose mask with jizz all over it. Bundy was booked on reckless driving charges and possession of burglary tools. The first time he'd been arrested as an adult. After that, things promptly started to fall apart. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He might as well have been driving Jigsaw's tricycle. Right? So awkward. It's like, you psycho? What the hell is all this shit in your trunk? Anyways, but right? Bundy was quickly connected to the attempt abduction of Carol Deranche and charged with aggravated kidnapping. Now that a clearly violent MO had been established, an officer in Salt Lake City remembered a call he'd gotten earlier that year from a woman from Washington State who said she thought her friend's boyfriend may have been responsible for the rash of murders plaguing Utah. Working off that tip, authorities brought Elizabeth Klepfer in for questioning. Boom, she recounted the strange objects and suspicious behavior she observed while dating Bundy. But most damning of all, she revealed that she'd done her own detective work after her friend had been so adamant about her suspicions. After cross-referencing her calendar and diary with newspaper reports, Elizabeth Klepfer discovered that her boyfriend had been unaccounted for on every night that a girl had disappeared in Seattle. Boom! Bitch, where were you? Like, when you first realized this shit? Move over, McConaughey. There's a new true detective in town. I'd say you shouldn't track your boyfriend's life this closely, but in this case, she was completely correct to do so. Wait, do all significant others do this? I'm innocent. Okay, first of all, I think people are naturally sneaky. I know I was when I was really sick in a relationship with an ex-boyfriend. I was so jealous and I was so insecure. But in healthy relationships, I don't want to go there. I don't want to let that behavior into my life. But if there's like a bunch of women, I don't know, like I think trust your gut, right? Trust your gut. Don't be, don't stick your head in the sand, but also like keep your eyes and ears open. Girl, don't be dumb. Or boy, don't be dumb. Yeah, okay. So sad. Yeah, it's really sad to be that girl. While the connections in the murders in Utah were still circumstantial, the case for a crime he'd committed in Colorado was about to become concrete. Earlier that year, he had traveled to Aspen, ostensibly for a little skiing. While there, he kidnapped a woman named Karen Campbell from the hotel she was staying at with her fiancé and his children after she left them in the lobby to go back to their room for a magazine. Hold on. Okay. I'm good. Am I? Am I good? Yeah, right. Let's see. According to Bundy, he faked chest pains, led her to his room, and knocked her unconscious. He hadn't stalked her. His room just happened to be between Karen's and the elevator. Witnesses had seen her get off the elevator on her floor. And since the magazine was still in her room, it's likely the abduction unfolded in minutes, if not seconds. Nobody saw him load Karen into his VW Bug, but when he removed her, she left behind a single hair. The hair was found after he was arrested, and it was eventually traced back to her disappearance. If only I left behind one hair when I left somewhere. One hair. That's so sad. But before he was to face that murder charge, he still had to contend with the crime of aggravated kidnapping in the case of Carol Durant. Thinking a year of law school qualified him to defend a felony case, he decided to represent himself. Bundy's overconfidence earned him a 15-year sentence. Damn! He shouldn't have asked for Cubby like the Big Lebowski did. You fuck a stranger in the ass. Fuck a stranger in the ass. This is what it's like when you fuck a stranger in the ass. I just can't stop thinking about the Big Lebowski. Okay. Then it was on to Colorado to face murder charges. Ted hadn't learned his lesson and decided to give self-lawyering a second shot. This outwardly idiotic move may have caused his jailers to underestimate his intelligence, something he would take full advantage of as soon as the moment was right. My father always taught me if you want to get out of responsibilities, you do something badly and no one asks you to do it again. Since Bundy was representing himself, he had near unlimited private access to the county law library. On the day of the hearing, to determine whether the prosecution was going to pursue the death penalty, he requested a little alone time to do a last-minute review. With the door closed and the window open, Bundy, wearing his court clothes, leaped 25 feet down from the second floor of the library and simply walked away, blending into the world as just another Aspen yuppie. He Jackie Chan'd his way out of prison. This is a dangerous motherfucker. I can't imagine how police reacted. He jumped out the goddamn window? We need a tank, fellas. Go, go, go. He knew he didn't have much time before all the roads would be sealed off, but he'd gain another advantage in acting as his own attorney. The prosecution was using a map of the area as evidence to detail the exact spot where his Colorado victim had been found, and Bundy had acquired this information and discovery. For a full week, he wandered the outskirts of Aspen from one unoccupied house to another. A fucking full week. Barely ahead of the cops, scavenging what he could. The people of Aspen, while terrified, seemed to revel in the horror. According to Ann Rule, souvenir t-shirts almost immediately began to appear with slogans like, "Ted Bundy is a one-night stand," and, less cleverly, "Bundy's free. You can't bet your Aspen on it." Oh my gosh, I love novelty t-shirts, but even this is a stretch for me, right? Bundy's week in the wilderness left him exhausted and frail. So, when a last-ditch effort was made to drive a stolen car out west to freedom, he didn't have the strength to control it. He didn't have the strength to drive. He was pulled over on suspicion of drunk driving and was back in jail by the end of the night. But he wouldn't stay there for long. He was about to disappear from Colorado altogether, never to return. His second prison break and subsequent actions would ensure his place in the imaginations of humans the world over as one of the most terrifying Americans ever to exist. If this was the 1400s, this guy would be like Vlad the Impaler. What we learned from covering Rasputin and Jim Jones on last podcast on the left is that if you are brazen enough to put all standards and self-preservation to the side to live your life in a specific arc, you can get away with murder and become a larger-than-life real monster. It would be really inspiring if it didn't lead to so much homicide. Bundy knew his next escape would have to be more complicated than just simply jumping out of a window. So after months of studying the movements and habits of his jailers, Bundy cut a 12 by 12 inch hole in the ceiling of his cell using a hacksaw smuggled in by a person whose identity was never fucking revealed. I'm just praying it wasn't the Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Hey, I made a wrestling reference. Good job. You want a cookie? Creak, creak, creak. I think the rats are getting bigger, Margaret. Bundy prepped for his escape by skipping breakfast every day, which served two purposes. He needed to drop weight if he was going to fit through that hole, and if he trained the guards not to interact with him until lunch, he'd be hours ahead of authorities before they realized. Oh my God, he was gone. Amazingly, in the 2 weeks prior to his second escape, he left his cell through the hole again and again. Each time he scouted the layout of the building and would go a little further looking for a perfect way out. He finally found it in the jailer's apartment. While sitting in the rafters listening to the jailer and his wife have a conversation over dinner. Bundy waited for a night when he knew the couple was out of the apartment, then crawled out of the escape hole. He walked through the rafters to the jailer's closet, dropped down, and walked through the front door. After stealing a car, he started making his way to the Aspen bus station, but 1.5 feet of snow had fallen earlier that day, and he hadn't chosen the right vehicle for the weather. In a snap decision, he flagged down a passing motorist and feigned panic, saying his wife had gone into labor in Denver. Bundy was raced to the bus station, where another layer of his devious genius came into play. Since he had represented himself in his case, he'd been given a credit card to make long-distance phone calls. Give me a effing break. This county convenience was used to buy a bus ticket to Denver, and from the bus station in Denver, he caught a cab to the airport. By the time the jailers noticed that Bundy was no longer in his cell, 17 hours had passed, and he was over 1,000 fucking miles away in downtown Chicago. Hacksaw, hee-oo. Is he the Native American guy? I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Holy shit, this guy... This is a smart motherfucker. With a new lease on life, Bundy decided he'd start over. No more stealing, no more raping, and especially no more murdering. And with this fresh start came a new location. He remembered how much he loved Florida when he attended the Republican National Convention in '68, but Miami wasn't his style. Ted Bundy was a college boy. He looked to the University of Florida at Gainesville, but according to him, it didn't look right on the map. No, the place where Ted Bundy would travel for his final spree would be the same place our very own Henry Thomas Zabrowski would attend college decades later, Tallahassee. Cut to Henry getting thrown out of every party for joking about Ted Bundy while wearing a dashiki. It's true, the Greek community didn't enjoy me, but the Greek restaurant community loved me. I was 300 pounds, super into Ornette Coleman, and had a dorm room covered in Area 51 themed merchandise. A college town is a great place to hide out in plain sight as a serial killer. Ted arrived in Tallahassee on a manic high. Gone was Theodore Robert Bundy, thief, rapist, killer, necrophiliac. Enter Kenneth Meisner, Tallahassee layabout. Bundy may have been on the FBI's most wanted list, but he figured as long as he kept his nose clean and didn't cause any trouble, he could live out the rest of his life and flow over the sun. In reality, he wouldn't last 2 weeks. Fucking idiot. Bundy spent his first few days in Tallahassee wandering about and drinking, promising himself that tomorrow would be the day he'd go out and get a job. When it became obvious that a job wouldn't magically materialize, the small allowances began. He stole a TV, a bike, a racquetball set. A racquetball set? Next came wallets and cars. After the thefts, the peeping returned. Good Lord, honey. In just 2 weeks, Bundy had gone from starting over to repeating his entire criminal evolution. And naturally, he couldn't just stop without going all the way. On January 14th, 78, the devil came to Chi Omega. Is it Chi or is it Chi? Or is it C or Psi? Who the hell knows? Well, Zabrowski knows, but earlier that night, Bundy had been drinking in a popular disco named Sherrod's. Whatever, correct me. Bundy had been drinking. Anyways, there he danced with a sorority girl named Marianne Pecano. Marianne said she had no real reason to fear the man who had asked her to dance, but the vibe he gave off was eerie, as if Bundy's aura was telegraphing the evil he was about to commit. Luckily for Marianne, she would not bear the brunt of it, lucky bitch, though some of her sorority sisters would not be so fortunate. They were sleeping fucking beauties, okay? At 2:45 a.m., Bundy broke into the Chi Omega house and walked into the room of Lisa Levy. Wielding a piece of firewood that he just picked up on his way inside, he raised the club and swung it down on Levy's head as she slept. She was fucking sleeping and knocked her out. In a frenzied rage, he began biting into her flesh, ripping off one of her nipples, and sinking his teeth into her butt so hard that they left an identifiable print. Fucking ass biter. But this was just his opening, baby. What? This was his opening act, okay? He then walked from room to room, bringing the same terror and cruelty to 3 more sorority sisters. Keep in mind, they were fucking sleeping. 2 would survive, but Margaret Bowman's head was struck so hard that her skull shattered. He also choked her so forcefully with nylon stocking that he reshaped her neck. Ew. Passion, evil, demon, giving her body the appearance of a macabre hourglass. Ugh. The murderers of Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy and the attempted murders of 2 more of their sisters had taken no more than fucking 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, he just... Bam! Bam! This is not Trailer Park Boys funniness, though. This is for real, like, bam! He just fucked them up. Okay, so, but even still, even after 4 victims that night, Bundy wasn't done. His last victim of the evening lived in a duplex 8 blocks away. Oh my gosh, I lived in a duplex. She survived, but he struck her so hard that her dreams of being a ballerina were ended by a permanent loss of equilibrium. Fuck me. If my equilibrium is off, right? If you know how you get the in vertigo or whatever, like you get up and you're like all off and shit, that fucking sucks. Like, what's the point of even like you getting up or laying down? You're like at the end of your life. Or you're on a permanent roller coaster ride, you know? While one would think that he might want to leave town as soon as possible after this vicious spree, he stuck around, continuing to steal until the entity demanded one more sacrifice. Again, this bullshit entity. On February 9, Bundy drove to Lake City, Florida, where he inexplicably changed up his MO, signature, and victim profile. Instead of using his charm and wit to lull a young woman into a false sense of security, Bundy forced a 12-year-old girl named Kimberly Leach into a stolen van parked outside her junior high school. He drove her 35 miles to an abandoned pig shed where, instead of strangling her, as he had most of his victims, he stabbed her to death. Leach's body would not be found for another fucking 8 weeks? A fucking 12-year-old little girl was not found within 40 miles of her house because she was lying dead in a pig shed? Fucking Florida. Oh my god. But police strongly suspected that this disappearance was connected to the Tallahassee slayings. Ultimately, Bundy didn't leave Tallahassee because of the heat his crimes would inevitably bring. He left because he owed his landlord $320 and didn't have the cash to pay. On February 12th, Bundy packed up what little of a life he built during his month, stole another VW Bug, one last hurrah with his favorite model. If you want to be fake cop, you've got to smell like one. Bundy. What does that say? Bundy cologne? I don't know. Ugh! Alright, guys. We're fucking doing this shit. We're doing it! I did not know, like, the intricacy of his, 2... What would you call them? Like, his 2 murders? What am I doing right now? Bye! Hello, it's me, and it's dark outside, and I'm all alone. Yeah, but at least I look good, right? Did my hair today. Yes, so thank you guys for being here with me. I love true crime when it's presented by these knuckleheads, right? Where my dogs at? These guys, okay? Let's go take a reference and just see. Alright, so I think... yeah. We got one more page left. We got one more page. Oh, this fart knocker. He's not even a fart knocker. You know what I mean? He's a fucking... That guy did get it. Look at that picture though. That is his fucking face. That's his face. Creepy jerk. Creepy jerk, man. So anyways, yes, we've got one more page left. And I'm wondering, let me know if you like having access to seeing the book and reading along with me. Because I also have the physical book. I can just read it here like I'm in some Shakespearean, I don't know, some community theater. This is community theater, okay? But yeah, I can continue going on and reading in the dark. Why don't I try? Why don't I try that? Anyways, let me know. Just to toss it up. Right? Let me see you toss it up. Like the way you gave it to me. Let me see you toss it up. Sorry. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. So, this lighting makes me look really greasy. I like it so greasy. Yeah. Here comes the grease ball. Hey, Luigi bringing you pizza. Why are you making fun of him, huh? Simpsons Season 10. Mm-hmm. Let me set the mood. Actually, I'm not setting the mood because I'm putting on my glasses. Just nerd alert. Nerd alert. Shelly's looking like a nerd, yeah. I could just turn on the light. Tell me how you like the mood. Is it a good mood? Because I could turn on the lights. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, okay. This is what it says. Two days later, Pensacola police officer David Lee became suspicious when he spotted Ted's bug pulling out from an alleyway behind a restaurant that had been closed for hours. Okay. When the officer called in the plates and the car came back as stolen, he turned on his siren. Beep! 5050. Bundy stepped on the gas, and after about a mile of speeding through the streets, he abruptly pulled over. Lee walked up to the car with his gun drawn and ordered Bundy outside. I can just imagine that cop. Get your fucking hands up! Get out of the car! He snapped only one cuff on Bundy when Bundy kicked Lee's legs out from under him and took off. What the fuck? Lee fired a shot and Bundy dropped. And when Lee got Bundy, he put up a fight, almost wrestling the gun away from the officer. Are you crazy? Finally, Lee overpowered Bundy and snapped on the other cuff, putting an end to a killing spree that had spanned 5 years in at least 4 states. When Lee booked Bundy into the station that night, Ted allegedly said, "I am the most cold-blooded son of a bitch you'll ever meet, you motherfucker." You know what I mean? Like, he's probably talking hella shit. I gotta take these off. I look like, what's his name? Millhouse? Well, my glasses. Yeah. Okay, so I'm sorry, but Bundy, but the most cold-blooded SOB is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Bundy's trial for the I want to say Chi Omega? Really? We're gonna go with Chi Omega? murders was a farce, as could be expected, because he once again chose to represent himself. In fact, he was so confident in his own abilities that he rejected a pre-trial plea. Well, this is a pre-trial plea deal that would have waived the death penalty. Instead, his own arrogance got him killed. Henry Zabrowski says, he has so many of the official traits of a true psychopath. According to the Hare Psychopathy Checklist. Number 1, glib and superficial charm. Check. Grandiose, exaggeratedly high estimation of self. Check. Need for stimulation. I need stimulation, but check. Pathological lying. Check. Cunningness and manipulativeness. Check. Lack of remorse or guilt. Check. Shallow affect, superficial emotional responsiveness. Check. Psycho. Callous and lack of empathy. Check. Parasitic lifestyle. Check. What the fuck does that mean? I mean, it's just kind of dramatic. Poor behavioral controls. Check. Early behavior problems. Check. Lack of realistic long-term goals. Check. Impulsivity. Check. Irresponsibility. Check. Failure to accept responsibility for own actions. Check. Juvenile delinquency. Check. And criminal versatility. Check. Ted Bundy's trial was among the first to be broadcast into the living rooms of Americans. At times, Bundy appeared almost competent, possibly even innocent. It was only when it came time to discuss the murders of the Chi Omega house that it became painfully obvious to the jury and to all of America that the perpetrator of the killing spree was standing right before their eyes. In the defense proceedings, next page, and then we're done. In the defense proceedings, Bundy called up a responding officer to the scene, seemingly just to ask for a recounting of the gruesome details. He asked the witnesses what condition the bodies had been found in, what position, and what sorts of wounds they had suffered. Then, when he'd gotten his fill of the particulars, he dismissed the witnesses without any follow-up. What did the body look like? What did it smell like? What position was it in? Okay. No, that's all. Like, what the fuck? It's psycho. I'm sorry, I just saw myself on Facebook and I was like, ew, who is that? It's me. Oh! Alright, sorry. So Bundy is just a weirdo representing his own self. Oh my god. So, he dismissed the witnesses without any follow-up, both baffling and chilling viewers at home and in court. After 7 hours of deliberation, the jury found Bundy guilty on all charges. He maintained his innocence even after the ruling, though, refusing to plead for his life, he said, "It is absurd to ask for mercy for something I did not do." The sentence quickly came back as death. Okay, weirdo. You fucking did it. The same verdict and sentence came the next year after the murder trial of Kimberly Leach, Bundy's last victim, the little girl. He remained seated and silent as he was sentenced to the electric chair for the second time. But when the jury began filing out of the box, he suddenly stood, tracking his eyes from the judge to the jury. He's like, those creepy eyes, you know what I mean? Abruptly raising his voice, he spoke. I just want to tell the jury that they are wrong. 11 years later, after a myriad of appeals, confessions, and even a failed attempt to help the FBI Behavioral Science Unit catch the Green River Killer, Ted Bundy met his doom strapped to the electric chair at the Florida State Prison. Fuck yeah. Ugh. Hundreds gathered outside the prison and celebrated his death as if the devil himself was being sent back into the maw of hell, hopefully never to return. USA! 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 But we should think about the innocent people on death row as well. That was from Ben Kissel. Ben Kissel is funny like that. He's cute. He'll make you think. Make you go, Alright. Everyone's asleep on Facebook, and that's okay. You guys are still here with me. My friends from Twitch, my Twitchers. You guys rock. And this is it. So, here we go. So, as we now see, no myths needed to be created when it came to Ted Bundy. The incestuous ancestry and dramatized character building can be tossed away like the Hollywood nonsense that it is. When it comes to the most feared serial killer in history, the truth is more than enough for 1,000 nightmares. I don't know if I want to read this. It's a bunch of bullshit. Yay or nay? Ted Bundy's paper. I'm a Rockefeller Republican. I don't know. Maybe I'll have a friend read it, but I don't want to read it. I mean, we could read it, but you just have to let me know. You want to read it? Yes? No? Maybe so? It's 6 paragraphs. I feel like it's just a jerk off, like a circle jerk of his. Most serial killers will write something. Israel Keys. Remember that loser, douchebag? I like the way the boys talk about Israel Keys because he's such a douchebag. And his family even thought so, but like Ted Bundy, I don't want to read whatever he wrote. I don't give a shit. Do you give a shit? I don't give a shit. It's Ted Bundy. Zac Efron might give a shit. But who cares about that guy? Anyways. Dun 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 dun. Nope. How about that? Does that work? Am I doing it? Am I doing a good job, guys? Oh, I did! I did a good job. It's not the best job. But it's a modest job. Someone's got to do it. Yay! When it comes to streaming... Here, let's go back to me. When it comes to streaming, I don't know shit, but I'm teaching myself, and I've got 2 consistent friends that show up, that are there for me, and if I get through this process, learning how to feel good about myself, connect with other people, share things that we might have in common and interest, then I get to be like, yeah, it was worth it. So anyways, thank you for being a nerdy dark dork, NDD. Thank you for being a nerdy dark dork with me tonight. I don't know. I'm probably going to snack and play some video games later. Have a good night, everyone. Let's do an ending scene. Okay. Good night. Good night. Adios. Talk to you later. Bye.